Be me, 32, engineer. Decent job, my own place. Everything in order. Not rich, but comfortable. Life felt pretty sorted out. Been with my girlfriend, Melissa, for about 3 years. She's 29, works in PR, smart, ambitious, funny. The kind of girl that turns heads when she walks into a room. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. We had our own lives, but always came back to each other. It felt like a real partnership. A few months back, I decided it was time. Spent weeks looking for the perfect ring. Not some giant, tasteless rock, but something classic and elegant. Something that felt like her. Finally found it. Burned a significant hole in my savings, but I didn't even care. Took her to this scenic spot overlooking the city where we had one of our first dates. My heart was hammering in my chest. I did the whole one-knee thing. She cried, said yes, everything you see in movies. For about a week, I was floating. Felt like the luckiest guy on the planet. We were engaged. We were going to build a life together. That feeling, it turned out, had an expiration date. The bliss lasted until the planning started. I thought it would be a team effort. You know, we sit down, make a budget, figure out what's important to both of us. That was my first mistake. It wasn't our wedding. It was her wedding. She bought a stack of wedding magazines that must have weighed 20 pounds. Her laptop was permanently open to Pinterest boards filled with stuff that looked like it belonged to royalty. I'd come home from work and she'd be surrounded by fabric swatches and pictures of flowers I'd never heard of. At first, it was kind of charming. Her excitement was infectious. I tried to get involved. Hey, what do you think about this venue? It's nearby, my buddy got married there, said it was great and didn't cost a fortune. She'd give me this little patient smile, the kind you give a kid who doesn't understand adult things. Honey, that's sweet, but I was thinking of something a little more memorable. Memorable was code for insanely expensive. She found this place, a historic country estate, the kind of place with fountains and perfectly manicured gardens. The pictures looked like they were from a movie set. So did the price tag. Just the fee to rent the grounds for one day was more than my car was worth. I brought up the budget, gently. Mel, this place is amazing, but it's way over what we talked about. We could put a down payment on a house for that. Her face just fell. The sparkle in her eyes vanished. I thought you'd be excited for me. This is the one day in my life I get to feel like a princess. I've dreamed about this since I was a little girl. Then came the killer line. Don't you want me to be happy? What are you supposed to say to that? It felt like a checkmate. Any objection from that point on wasn't about fiscal responsibility. It was about me not wanting her to be happy. So, I folded. I agreed. That decision opened the floodgates. Once the Ultralux venue was locked in, everything else had to match. You can't have a Michelin star level venue and a buffet from the local BBQ joint. So, she found a caterer whose prices looked like phone numbers. She hired a photographer who was apparently famous in the wedding scene and charged accordingly. Every decision was unilateral. She'd present her choice to me, not as a question, but as a fun announcement. Good news, I found our florist. My role in this whole process was reduced to that of a human ATM. My savings, the ones I'd been carefully building for years, were draining away at an alarming rate. I was getting nervous, but I kept telling myself it was temporary. It's just wedding stress. Things will go back to normal after we're married. The first real major crack appeared a month or two later. We were having dinner at my parents' house. My mom is a sweet, traditional lady. She was over the moon about the engagement. During dinner, she said something innocent. I just can't wait to have a new Mrs., my last name in the family. Melissa, my last name. It has a lovely ring to it. The atmosphere at the table changed instantly. It was like someone had sucked all the air out of the room. Melissa put her fork down very, very slowly. She gave my mom a tight, cold smile. Actually, she said, her voice sharp, I won't be changing my name. My mom just blinked, confused. Oh, all right, dear. The rest of the dinner was painfully awkward. We talked about the weather. In the car on the way home, the silence was deafening. I waited until we were back in our apartment. Hey, about what happened at my parents'... She exploded. I can't believe your mother. It's so unbelievably archaic, assuming I'm just going to erase my identity and become some extension of you. I tried to be calm, to be the rational one. I don't think she meant it like that. It's just a tradition. For her, for a lot of people, it's a symbol of two people becoming a new family. It's a symbol of ownership, she shot back. It's a relic from a time when women were property. My name is part of my career, my brand, who I am. I'm not giving that up. Okay, deep breath. I could see her point. Even if I didn't totally agree, I could respect it. Time for a compromise. What about a hyphenated name? We could both do it, so we both have a piece of each other's identity. She actually laughed, a short, bitter laugh. So I can attach your name to mine like some kind of trailer and have to spell it out for people for the rest of my life? No thanks. There was no room for discussion. It was a brick wall. A cold feeling started to creep into my stomach. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a decree. I had to ask the next question. I was almost afraid to hear the answer. Okay, so what about kids, if we have them someday? She looked at me like it was the most obvious thing in the world. They'll have my last name, of course. I just stared at her. Your name? Just your name? Yes, Chris. Someone has to break the patriarchal cycle. Why should the default always be the man's name? We can start a new tradition, a better one. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. This wasn't about feminism or independence anymore. This was about erasure. She didn't want to build a new family with me. She wanted to build her own family with her name, and I was just a necessary component, a donor, a financier. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just laid in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying that conversation over and over in my head. Every time I thought about it, I felt this growing dread. Who was this person I was about to marry? In the weeks that followed, things got worse. The argument over the name created a new dynamic. Now, anytime I questioned a decision or hesitated at an expense, it was thrown back in my face. It was no longer just me being cheap or practical. It was a symptom of my toxic masculinity. I questioned the need for a 5-tier wedding cake that cost more than my monthly rent. It's typical male thinking to dismiss the details that make an event beautiful. You just don't get it. I suggested we could maybe ask guests for contributions to a honeymoon fund instead of a gift registry filled with crystal glasses we'd never use. So, you want me to look like I'm begging for money from my friends and family? Do you have any idea how that looks? Every conversation was a minefield. I was always in the wrong. I was either being controlling, unsupportive, or just too much of a typical man to understand her vision. The phrase strong, independent woman got thrown around a lot. She was a strong, independent woman who needed me to pay for everything. The irony was suffocating. She was the one in charge of everything. She proudly told her friends how she was managing the entire wedding planning process herself because she was so organized. And she was, in a way. She was a fantastic project manager. She delegated all the payments to me. An email would land in my inbox. Hey babe, the deposit for the DJ is due Friday. Can you take care of it? The contract is attached. I noticed something after a while. All the contracts, they were in her name. She was the one signing on the dotted line. She was the client. At the time, I didn't think much of it. It just seemed like another part of her taking control. Her wedding, after all. Looking back, it's incredible how many red flags I just walked past. I loved her. Or, I loved the person I thought she was for the first 3 years. I kept telling myself that this demanding, entitled stranger was just a temporary bridezilla phase. But the original Melissa wasn't coming back. Maybe this was who she was all along, and I was just too blind to see it. The final act began about 2 months before the wedding date. We were sitting on the couch one evening, watching some show. She turned the TV volume down. We need to talk about something, she said, her tone serious. I braced myself. What now? Did the doves we hired need their own air-conditioned trailer? My mother thinks it's a good idea for us to get a prenup. My blood ran cold. A prenup. She quickly added, it's not about not trusting each other. It's just practical. It's what smart modern couples do. It protects both of us. It's really more of a feminist document, you know? It makes sure the woman is secure. I didn't know what to say. The idea of planning for a divorce before we were even married felt wrong. It felt like buying a coffin on your birthday, but again, I was cornered. If I said no, I was unreasonable. I was trying to trap her. I was a monster. If I said yes, I was agreeing that our marriage was just a business transaction with a high probability of failure. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Let me see it. She smiled, relieved. Great. I'll have my lawyer draft something up and send it over. Her lawyer, not a lawyer, not let's find one together. Her lawyer. A week later, a thick envelope arrived for me. That night, I sat down at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and the document that would decide my future. I started to read. The first few pages were standard legal jargon. Then I got to the meat of it. I'm an engineer. I read technical documents and complex blueprints for a living. I'm trained to pay attention to details, and the details in this document were horrifying. It wasn't a prenup. It was a financial suicide pact, for me. According to the terms she had drafted, any assets in her name, before or during the marriage, remained her sole and separate property. This included her salary, any investments she made, and, explicitly, any gifts received from me or my family. So, the down payment assistance my parents had offered us for a future house, if it went into an account with her name on it, it was hers, forever. Any assets in my name, however, were a different story. My premarital property, which included the apartment I owned and lived in, would become marital property subject to division after 5 years of marriage. So, I could lose half of the home I bought long before I ever met her. But that wasn't the worst part. The alimony clause. In the event of a divorce, for any reason, initiated by either party, I would be required to pay her spousal support. The amount was not small. It was calculated to maintain her accustomed standard of living. The standard of living that I was currently funding, and the duration? 10 years, a full decade. It didn't matter if she was cheating on me. It didn't matter if she was making more money than me. The clause was ironclad. There was another section about future earnings. Any significant increase in my income or any inheritance I might receive would be considered part of the marital pot. Hers would not. I read it 3 times. I thought I had to be misunderstanding the legal language, but it was all perfectly clear. This wasn't a document designed to protect both of us. This was an executioner's warrant for my financial future. It was a golden parachute for her in a plane she expected me to fly and pay for, and she'd already packed her bags for the jump. I felt sick. I put the papers down on the table and just stared at the wall, and suddenly everything clicked into place. The expensive wedding, the refusal to take my name, the insistence that the kids take her name, the constant dismissal of my opinions, the weaponization of feminism to justify her own selfishness. And now this predatory legal document. It wasn't a series of unrelated red flags. It was a plan, a very carefully constructed plan. She wasn't looking for a partner. She was looking for an investor, a mark. And I had been the perfect candidate, a good guy with a stable job and a healthy savings account, too in love to see what was right in front of him. The love I felt for her didn't just fade, it evaporated. In its place was something cold and hard. I wasn't just disappointed. I was angry. Angry at her for her deception, but also angry at myself for being so naive. For weeks I had been feeling like I was going crazy. She had twisted every situation to make me feel like I was the problem, that I was the unsupportive toxic one. But seeing it all laid out in black and white, in sterile legal clauses, it was clarifying. It was like the fog had finally lifted. I wasn't the problem. The problem was that I was signing up for a game that was rigged from the start. The wedding was in less than 2 months. Thousands of dollars in non-refundable deposits had been paid. From my account. Invitations were probably being printed. I knew what I had to do. There was only one possible move left on the board. It was going to be messy. It was going to be brutal. But it was better than the alternative. The alternative was a lifetime of being a walking wallet with no name and no respect. I took a deep breath. It was time to cancel the wedding. I didn't say anything to her for a couple of days. I needed a plan. I couldn't just have an emotional blow-up. That's what she would expect. That would just give her ammunition to paint me as the unstable, angry man. No, this had to be handled cleanly, clinically, like defusing a bomb. I spent the next 48 hours getting my ducks in a row. I called my bank. I moved the majority of my remaining savings into a new account at a different bank that she had no knowledge of. I changed all my passwords, online banking, email, everything. I went through all the wedding-related emails and invoices she'd forwarded to me for payment. I saved PDF copies of every single one. I highlighted the parts showing the client's name, Melissa. I highlighted the signature on each contract, Melissa. I cross-referenced them with the payments I had made from my account, documenting the flow of money, from me to her to the vendors. It was a neat little paper trail. The final piece of the puzzle was deciding where and how to do it. It couldn't be at our apartment. That was her territory now, filled with her wedding magazines and fabric swatches. It was a battlefield of her choosing. It had to be on neutral ground. I sent her a text. Hey, can we meet for coffee tomorrow after work? There are a few things in the prenup I'd like to discuss. The bait was taken instantly. Of course, let me know where. I picked a quiet, generic coffee shop halfway between our workplaces, a place with no memories attached. I got there early, picked a table in the corner. When she walked in, she was beaming. She looked beautiful, radiant. She was on the home stretch of her grand plan. She sat down, all smiles. So, what's on your mind? Did you have any notes for the lawyer? I didn't say hello. I just slid the prenup document across the table toward her. I'm not signing this, I said. My voice was calm, so calm it surprised even me. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Then it was back, but this time it was a little strained. Okay, well, we can change things. What parts are you worried about? I told you it was just a first draft. I'm not interested in a second draft, I said. I'm not interested in negotiating the terms of my own surrender. The smile vanished completely now. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've read it, Melissa. I see what it is. I see what this is. I gestured vaguely between the two of us. This isn't a partnership. It's a hostile takeover, and I'm the target company. Her face started to flush with anger. The mask was slipping. Oh, I see. So, you're just like all the rest of them. The second a woman tries to protect herself, you call her a gold digger. You're scared of a strong, independent woman who has her own back. It was the same old script, the same tired lines she'd used for months. But this time, they had no power over me. I let her finish. I just sat there, looking at her. When she was done, I leaned forward slightly. Let's stop using that phrase, strong, independent woman. A truly independent woman doesn't need to rig a contract to drain her partner's finances. A strong woman doesn't demand a wedding she can't afford and then expect someone else to foot the bill. You're not independent. You're a dependent, cosplaying as a CEO. Her jaw dropped. She was speechless. I don't think anyone had ever talked to her like that before. You don't want a husband, I continued, my voice still level. You want a sponsor. You don't want a family. You want a dynasty with your name on it, funded by my labor. You talk about smashing the patriarchy, but you're more than happy to enjoy the financial benefits of it when it suits you. It's the biggest hypocrisy I've ever seen. She finally found her voice. It was shaking with rage. You're unbelievable. After everything I've done for this wedding, for us. That's where you're wrong, I said, and this was the final blow. I stood up from the table. There is no us anymore. The wedding is off. I turned and walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. My phone started vibrating in my pocket before I even reached my car. I ignored it. By the time I got home, I had 17 missed calls and a wall of text messages. They started with anger, curses, accusations. Then they moved to bargaining. We can fix this, let's talk. We're throwing away 3 years. Then came the tears and the pleading. I love you, don't do this to me, you're my whole life. I read them all one by one. I felt nothing. It was like reading a weather report. Then I blocked her number. That night, I packed a bag and went to stay with a friend. I knew she'd show up at the apartment. I didn't want to be there. The next morning, the real storm began. I got a call from my mom. She was distraught. Melissa had called her, crying hysterically. She'd spun a whole story, that I'd gotten cold feet, that I had commitment issues, that I'd screamed at her in the coffee shop and dumped her for no reason. She played the victim perfectly. My parents were confused and hurt. I calmly walked them through the whole thing, the name issue, the wedding costs, and finally, the prenup. I emailed them a copy of it. My dad, who was a man of few words, called me back an hour later. You did the right thing, son. We're proud of you. That meant more to me than anything. The next wave of calls came a few days later. They were from numbers I didn't recognize. It was the vendors. First, the coordinator from the wedding venue. Hi, I'm calling for Melissa. We just wanted to confirm the cancellation of the event on date. As per the contract, the initial 50% deposit is non-refundable. And since the cancellation is within 60 days, the full remaining balance is now due. I listened patiently. I think you have the wrong number, I said. I'm not the client. My name isn't on that contract. You need to speak with Melissa. There was a pause on the other end. Oh, okay. Sorry to bother you. It was the same conversation, over and over. The photographer, the caterer, the florist, the DJ. Each one had the same story. A massive non-refundable deposit already paid, and a huge cancellation fee, or the full remaining balance now due. And each time, I gave the same response. My name is not on that contract. You need to talk to Melissa. I could almost hear the gears turning in their heads as they realized their sole point of contact and the person legally responsible was the one who was about to be on the hook for all of this. The final call came about a week later. It was from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer it. I did. It was her. Crying so hard I could barely understand her. Chris, you have to help me. They're all calling me. They're sending me bills. The venue says I owe them another $20,000. The caterer wants $15,000. I can't pay this. You have to call them and tell them you'll pay. The desperation in her voice was raw. The confident, powerful woman was gone. All that was left was a panicked mess. Why would I do that, Melissa? I asked, genuinely curious. Because it was our wedding. You were supposed to pay for it. This is all your fault. You canceled it. I took a slow breath. This was it. The last conversation we would ever have. Let me make sure I understand, I said, my voice as even as stone. You wanted a wedding where you made every decision. You wanted a marriage where you kept your name, your assets, and your independence. You signed the contracts. You were the one in charge, the strong, independent woman. She was sobbing now. Please, Chris. Well, you got it, I said. You got your independence. This is what it looks like. You're independent now. Figure it out. I hung up the phone, and then I blocked that number too. A friend of mine who has mutual friends with her told me the aftermath. She had to take out a massive personal loan to pay off the cancellation fees. She had to sell her car. She had to move out of her nice apartment and back in with her parents. Her dream wedding, the symbol of the perfect life she was designing, ended up destroying her finances and humiliating her. It's been about 6 months since all that happened. I got all my money back from the joint account we had for wedding expenses. I'm back in my own apartment. It's quiet. Sometimes I think about it all. I don't feel anger anymore. I don't feel sadness. Mostly I just feel a profound sense of relief. It's the feeling of a man who walked up to the edge of a cliff, looked down, and decided to take a step back. I didn't dodge a bullet. I dodged a tactical nuclear strike on my entire life. I learned a very expensive, very painful lesson. Some people don't want a partner. They want a pedestal. And they expect you to build it for them, hold it up for them, and then pay for the privilege. I'm just glad I tore mine down before she could kick me off of it.